Welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show.
I'm Andy Hastings.
And I'm Mally Shadmary.
Together, we own Hastings Shadmary, an Atlanta-based law firm specializing in family law.
This is a space where we talk all things family law and all topics that touch the area of family law, from divorce to custody to self-growth, personal empowerment, and more. We bring you the truth, from our wolf pack to yours. Hello, and welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show. I'm Mally Shadmary, and I have a special guest today. I don't have my partner in crime, Andy Hastings. She's currently trial prepping. We're going to give her that. But I am joined today by Nyxie Shadmary. She is my 7-month-old Frenchie. I think that's the right math. I probably did the math wrong. She was born in November of 2024. She's a Sagittarius. And since I was going to be talking to you guys solo today, I wanted to have my little witchy tiny blueberry here with me. I call her a blueberry. Don't ask me why. She's just a little tiny thing. She's perfect. I got her around my birthday this year, and so she's going to join us today. As you can see, she's a chill girly. And y'all have heard me talk about my other dogs, Stormy and Cohen. They make up my personal wolf pack. So having this little baby join the crew was not anticipated, but it was a great surprise, and I could not resist her once someone put her in my arms. So here we are with a new baby in the mix, and she has taken to the program. She knows her job, and she has helped honestly mellow me out, mellow my wolf pack out at home. And so she and Stormy come to work every day with me usually. And she loves to sit in meetings just like she's doing right now. If you're not watching, she's got her tiny paws on the table in front of me. Her head is on the table. She's just sleeping, sitting in my lap with head on table. She's perfect. So today we're talking about adultery. People always want to talk about adultery, so here you go. There you have it. We're just going to talk some basics and have a little time together, just one-on-one today. So I'll do a check-in with myself. You check in with yourself while I do this. Am I a warrior or a diplomat today? Warrior, baby. Warrior. Just because I'm in trial prep, got a big trial coming up at the end of July, feeling amazing about that. Challenging case, keeping me on my toes as a lawyer, which I definitely need that fire. And bodybuilding, I have started a cut, so get ready to join that ride with me and see me lean out for summer and get ready to compete later this year. But it's taking a lot of my focus, a lot of tweaking of little habits going on right now to make sure I'm eating the right foods and dealing with the hunger and not cheating on my diet, getting the cardio in, balancing that with my career, keeps me in warrior mode right now in the best way. Just kind of fighting to evolve, and fighting's probably not the right word, but just this is a time for me of just grinding. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and I hope you're at a good spot too. So with that, let's talk about adultery. How can it affect your case? We're talking about specifically related to divorce cases in the realm of family law. Adultery means you have had sexual relations with another person during the marriage, and it can impact your case in several ways. It can impact equitable division, and it can impact the custodial arrangement that's developed by the court for your children. It can increase legal costs immensely when we need to delve into all of that. It depends on what we're really talking about. So everything is very fact specific. So most people come to me and say, I think my spouse has cheated, and here's why. We're in the consultation. They'll talk to me about, I found all these text messages. I have pictures. I see the sexting. I found payments to the dating apps, screenshots of their profile on the dating apps. And then a lot, I would say the majority of my clients, the parties have already agreed that so-and-so has cheated. So a lot of times, most of my clients that come to me, when we've got components related to adultery in their case, they will have known for a while that the cheating has happened. It's usually what I find with my clients is that they found out a long time ago that cheating had occurred, and it continued to happen over time. And they're finally at a place where they've accepted it. Sometimes people have found adultery, they found out so-and-so cheated, and boom, I'm ready to be done. But more often, people know it's been happening, and they've put up with it for a little while. They think things can change, and it doesn't. That's what I tend to see most often. You could, like I said, have an abrupt cheating and you're ready to be done. That I see less often. People, I think, usually are trying to give things a chance, from my experience. And then you can also have a scenario where you just have a feeling that cheating is going on, but nothing really concrete to prove it yet. And in those cases, what we're usually recommending, it varies by case, and you have to be very careful with this. But you can hire a private investigator to do some surveillance, do some different things. They have lots of tricks up their sleeves. And we'll have to have a PI on to talk to you about that, because that's just not my forte. That's why we hire them. They can do their special magic to figure out if cheating has happened. And sometimes it's beneficial to find out whether cheating has occurred prior to filing for divorce. Sometimes, this is not my style, I will tell you this, but I have seen and heard attorneys giving this following advice. Go ahead, let's hire this private investigator and let's prove without a shadow of a doubt that this cheating has happened. That happens a lot. And I will always give that option to clients, but I always am going to give them other options as well and explain, like, look, what if we can prove that cheating happened, what are you going to get out of that? I understand it's closure, but what else can you get in the divorce by proving that? You're going to spend a lot of money on a private investigator to prove this adultery. What do you want out of it? And we're going to talk about that. So sometimes at the consultation, the advice is let's get you a private investigator and let's get this show on the road and see what we can prove before we file. I generally veer away from that advice. I generally say, look, if you have this inkling and you're ready to proceed with the divorce, we can do discovery. We will look at financial statements. We will pull all the data that we can. We'll request text messages. We'll do all kinds of things to see if their cheating did occur. But we need to not hold your life up just to prove this. To me, that's stalling you. I understand you have the need to know, but most of the time it's not worth the money to go hire someone to prove it before you file. The reason there's caveats to that, though, it depends on the case. Sometimes it really is worthwhile to go prove that it happened before you file. And you can have a private investigator during the case as well. So that's also an option. You can file for divorce and have a private investigator investigating the adultery. But adultery has to be intercourse, okay? And you have to be able to prove that. And you have to be able to prove it in a couple different ways. You know, we can have text messages that make it very clear, but what the law says here in Georgia typically is you have to have the appearance and the opportunity that you did cheat. So something along, and I keep using the term cheat. This would actually have to be having sex with, not just an emotional affair or anything like that. You would have to have, for instance, we subpoenaed records from a hotel, and we can show that your husband got a hotel room on a certain night. And then we also have a private investigator. And we have photographs of husband and a miscellaneous woman, unknown woman, walking in to the hotel room and closing the door behind them. That would be evidence that they have the appearance and the opportunity to do so. The door closes behind them. They're in the hotel room. We probably have some text messages we're able to pull from their phones, things like that. And yes, you can involve the paramour in the case as well. You can take their depositions. You can subpoena them to have to participate. We can subpoena the information, the text messages between them from their phone. Okay, so let's cover how can adultery affect the divorce. For alimony in Georgia, because remember, in Georgia we have 13 different grounds for divorce, and adultery is one of those grounds. We're a no-fault divorce state. You can divorce on the grounds that the marriage is irretrievably broken, but you can also add, and you can file on those grounds. You can say when you first file, a big thing that we do is to be nice. Is say we're filing on the grounds that the marriage is irretrievably broken, but we have the right to amend this as the case proceeds. As discovery proceeds and we uncover more information, we have the right to amend this. Or for a lot of reasons, we like to leave out the conduct-related claims for divorce and try to settle the case very amicably. And if it's not going to, well, then we need to amend the pleadings and proceed on the conduct, and it can be a lot more expensive. So for me, I usually like to include all my grounds for divorce from the very beginning. Don't play hide the ball. And with adultery, that's one of the 13 grounds for divorce that you really, in my opinion, you do need to plead for at the beginning. It's a lot stronger if you plead for it at the beginning. It's cleaner. your discovery is clear from the time your case is filed onwards, and you're good to go. A lot of times playing hide the ball just costs more money in the long run. And for something like adultery has to have occurred before you guys separated, okay, for it to count as adultery in the divorce frame of mind, in the realm of divorce in Georgia. So meaning you have to be, in Georgia, you have to be separated in order to file for divorce, meaning you can't be having sex anymore. You can still live under the same roof and be deemed separated, but you have to be separate. You can't be having intercourse anymore when you file for divorce. And if someone has committed adultery, you had knowledge of it, you cannot have sex in your marriage. You cannot have sex with your spouse after you had the knowledge that they had an affair on you, if you want to use adultery to your greatest advantage in the divorce. Okay, meaning it's basically deemed, if you had knowledge that your spouse had sex with someone else and then you forgive them and you have sex with them within the marriage, you're making the cheating is still going to be relevant, it's still going to be at issue, but not as much as you'd think at that point. And it's kind of deemed as though you forgave the cheating. We can't file on the grounds for adultery anymore because you forgave it. So you have to have a date of separation. And if we're saying that you separated because you found out about adultery, then we really need to include the adultery in the first filing that we file in this case. And I think it makes negotiation stronger when you include the fact in your pleadings that you know adultery occurred, because then the negotiation can happen within the realm of reality. There's some conduct-related things we need to talk about. So can alimony impact adultery? Yes, but not as much as people want it to. And in fact, the key to all this is to understand adultery typically doesn't affect anyone's divorce as much as they want it to. Okay? It typically, the one that cheated is going to be a little safer, I would say. And that's really a blunt truth opinion. There could be colleagues of mine out there that disagree with me. Very opinionated based on my experience, is that judges and courts are desensitized to a lot of the conduct, okay? These judges are dealing with children that have been abused and victims of just brutal types of cases, and we're dealing with children without parents. We're dealing with criminals. We're dealing with other problems than just, I'm sorry to say it this way, I really am, because it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt any less. But the judges are not going to care so much about, I'm sorry that your rich husband went and played golf and slept with the cocktail waitress. We see it all the time. They're desensitized. And I am not saying that means that your heartache is not important, because it is. But this is the blunt truth that litigants need to hear, and that my clients get to hear from me. But I never want to hurt people's feelings, because we must validate the pain that you're going through, man or woman, if you've been cheated on. And I've had clients that have been cheated on in every way, shape, or form. These can be shocking to the heart, to the conscience. This is heartbreak. And it's not easy. But judges see it all the time. And they are not going to see it as shockingly as we do and as you feel. So think about that and really sit on that advice, because that's real. And as feisty as an attorney you might get who can fight to the death and paint this picture of the heartbreak, I've done that. I've tried that. And it's not going to fare as well as you think. You're going to spend a lot of money going through all of that for a judge to say, I'm going to divide things pretty much equally, give you enough support to move on, take care of the kids. A jury, they might be swayed a little bit more, because in my experience, they're not as desensitized as a judge. They are going to connect a little bit more to the nuances and have that emotion with us a little bit more. But a jury trial is very expensive and not usually worth it unless your marital estate is vast and you've got the assets and income that back up spending that kind of money on a case, and time. So I'm teasing you guys. I never answered this question. Can alimony be affected by adultery? So yes, but not as much as people would like it to. And that's and so in effect, what happens is, first of all, adultery is a bar to alimony. So if you want to receive alimony, then you cannot have committed adultery. And if that would be an example of, if you really want to prove that adultery has happened before you file for divorce, if you are the breadwinner and you are likely to have to pay some alimony, it might be worth it to prove that that adultery has happened and gather a lot of evidence so that we have a much cleaner case to say you don't get alimony, you committed adultery. So what alimony does not do as it pertains to, or what adultery does not do as it pertains to alimony is you don't just get more alimony because someone cheated on you. The breadwinner is not going to get punished by having to pay you more in alimony because they cheated on you. That's just how Georgia's laws are drafted. And I have my opinions as to why, but I'm not even going to go there right now. It pertains to who drafted our laws back in the day and how the way these laws are drafted supported the people that drafted these laws. And that has changed over time. What has changed over time is who's in charge of drafting our laws, and laws change more slowly than our society and our culture does. We'll have another episode about that. But anyway, so we talk about alimony, can slightly impact alimony. Can it impact equitable division? Equitable division is how we divide the marital estate. Yes, it can impact equitable division. First of all, equitable means fair. In the court, Superior Court in Georgia is the court that's going to oversee a divorce, and it's a court of equity, fairness. And in order to determine what is fair, the court can consider conduct. So the court can consider conduct in dividing the marital estate, and the court could just say, I just don't like you, bad boy or girl, and I'm giving them a little bit more of the estate. Sure, rare, not usually going to happen. Probably going to happen more with a jury. Judges like to divide the estate 50-50 even when adultery has occurred. That's a hard truth. It sucks. You're more likely to get more out of negotiation than you will in some courts if adultery has been at issue, especially when you take into the account the cost of trial to go prove these things. And this is when we get down to granular details of like how much evidence do we have. And the advice I have there is the more evidence you have, the better, because we're a preponderance of the evidence. We need to gather enough evidence to just show that it's more likely than not that this has happened. And that's going to be a question between you and your lawyer. It could be video evidence. I've seen it all. It could be text messages. It could be, oftentimes, they admit it. So it could be a lot of different things. But can it impact the equitable division? It's going to be minimal. And the main way it would impact equitable division, how we divide the assets and debts, would be if one of you has spent marital funds on an extramarital lifestyle. That's called dissipation of the marital assets. So if we're able to, usually we'll hire a forensic accountant. They'll pause. I need everyone that's watching to please look at this puppy. I mean, how is this real? And you're welcome. We just need to pause to look at how cute this is. Just flopped in her mom's arms. All right, so sorry for that tangent. Back to equitable division. If we hire a forensic accountant, we can get them to calculate how much do we think has been spent on this affair. And I've seen a lot of purchases of really high-end handbags, high-end stores, of course, dates. You can kind of put together forensically what kind of a lifestyle was happening. We can pull financial records. We can subpoena all kinds of records, hotel records. We've found a lot of information doing that. Things from Delta, flight tickets, things like that. We can get all kinds of things and calculate a total that has been spent and say, look, you spent $30,000, $40,000. I've seen numbers like that, more or less as well, on this affair, traveling with your significant other, doing this all behind their back. With that money should still be in the marital estate, but for your behavior. So we're going to make sure that the other party is made whole and they still get their fair portion, and that you don't get rewarded for just dissipating those marital assets. And then, of course, custody and child support is not going to really be impacted by adultery. But custody, of course, would be if you've shown a court that you have been more focused on an extramarital lifestyle rather than doing what's responsible and ending your marriage when it even got to that point or working through things. And you've subjected your children to a messy situation because of it. And you've created the impression that you're more fixated on another relationship rather than the raising of your children. Your custody case is going to be a little more challenging. I don't want to scare anybody. Accidents happen, mistakes happen. This happens. And just because you cheated does not mean you're going to lose custody of your children. It does not. All I'm saying is, and you can, I have plenty of people that have had an affair and they remain primary physical custodian of their children, okay? And I acknowledge that oftentimes cheating happens because there are underlying issues that should have been resolved and the cheating became the easiest way out. Like, I get it, but you just need to know that it will complicate your case. Your custody case will be under a little bit more of a magnifying glass, if you will, okay? I have had clients hide this information from me and me not find out until well into the case that they had cheated during the marriage. It's not the time to be embarrassed. Share everything with your lawyer. To be able to navigate an adulterous situation is tough for the lawyer. And it can be more expensive the less information you share. If we know everything, we can better navigate those waters, okay? I'll never forget. This is an example I'm going to leave you with, and it's one of my very favorite cases I ever had, long time ago. And I remember having the consultation with the client, and it was I was a baby lawyer, so I was the second chairing. I wasn't the one running the consultation. I was learning. And he said at the beginning of the consultation, the client said, "I haven't had sex with my wife in 20 years." We continue on the consultation. At the end, the other lawyer that was running the consultation goes, "Okay, well, I know you said at the beginning that you haven't had sex with your wife for 20 years. But have you had sex in 20 years? And he said, "Yes." And I'm, baby lawyer, just shocked. I'm like, oh my God, he tricked us. And no, he didn't want to share that. And so we then have to have a longer conversation about, okay, tell us what happened since you have had sex in the past 20 years, just not with your wife. And he had multiple affairs, and that did come up a lot during the case, and it didn't impact the case all that much. The wife wanted it to, but it didn't, because Georgia also contains a ground for divorce called desertion. Desertion can be abandoning the family. We'll do a separate episode just on that, but it can also mean not having sex with your spouse for a period of a year or more. You can get a divorce for that reason. And that's not an automatic sort of defense to adultery, okay? It doesn't just like fix everything to say, well, you wouldn't have sex with me. You deserted me, so I had to do this. But I'm just saying our law does allow for that conversation to happen. The law acknowledges that sex is a part of marriage. So kind of a different topic. But that's what I'm going to leave you with for today. Very basic little pep talk on adultery. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. The Hastings Shadmary Show is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Our email address is podcast@hsfamilylaw.com. Come find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Hastings Shadmary.
The Hastings Shadmary Show is a production of Hastings Shadmary Family Law and 1066 Productions. It is produced and edited by Ned Hastings.